You are sitting still. Nothing is happening. Your phone is across the room and you told yourself you wouldn't check it. 10 seconds pass. 20. And then something strange begins to crawl up from somewhere deep inside your chest. A restlessness. An itch with no location. A pull toward anything at all. Just so long as it isn't this. That feeling has a name. And the real answer for why you feel it is far stranger than you think. Boredom feels like a malfunction. It feels like your brain breaking down, misfiring, punishing you for doing nothing. But your brain does not make mistakes like that. Every uncomfortable sensation your body produces exists for a reason. Pain tells you something is damaged. Hunger tells you fuel is low. Fear tells you danger is close. So what is boredom telling you? The answer reaches back at least 2 million years. Your ancestors lived in a world with no calendars, no schedules, no productivity apps. But they did have one relentless problem: resources, food, water, shelter, safe ground. These things were never guaranteed. They had to be found, tracked, guarded, fought for. And any ancestor who sat down, went blank, and stayed blank for too long paid a price. They missed the animal tracks. They failed to scout new territory. They let the fire go out. They did not survive long enough to become your ancestor. The ones who did survive were the ones who could not tolerate stillness. The ones whose brains, when left without stimulation, generated a signal so uncomfortable it forced them to move, to explore, to investigate, to do something. Boredom was not the enemy of your ancestors. It was the engine. Researcher Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire has studied boredom for over a decade. She describes it not as emptiness, but as a state of wanting. Your brain is not switched off when you are bored. It is running at high alert, scanning for something worth engaging with. The discomfort you feel is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of unsatisfied drive. Think about what happens in your body when boredom peaks. Your eyes move, your legs shift, your fingers reach for something. You stand up and walk to the kitchen for no reason. You open the fridge and stare into it without hunger. You pick up your phone, you put it down, you pick it up again. Every single one of these behaviors is your ancient search algorithm activating, your brain detecting a gap in your environment and ordering your body to fill it. This is why children, when told there is nothing to do, immediately invent something to do. They build forts, they chase insects. They make up elaborate games with rules that change every 5 minutes. No one teaches them this. The restlessness comes pre-installed. The curiosity that boredom ignites is one of the oldest features of the human mind, and it is the direct ancestor of every tool ever made, every map ever drawn, every question ever asked. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University conducted a study where participants were placed in situations designed to produce boredom. What he found was that boredom was always accompanied by a powerful desire to engage with something meaningful. The brain was not asking for distraction, it was asking for purpose. When that purpose arrived, the boredom dissolved instantly. The signal had done its job. That is the key detail most people miss. Boredom is not a state, it is a signal. And like all biological signals, it is not meant to last. It is meant to end. The way hunger ends when you eat. The way thirst ends when you drink. Boredom ends when you engage. The problem is that modern life has given you 1,000 ways to fake that engagement without actually providing what your brain is looking for. Your phone is very good at this. A scroll gives you movement. It gives your eyes something to track, your thumbs something to do, your brain a trickle of new information every second. It fires just enough of the signal to quiet the alarm, but it does not solve the underlying search. So the alarm resets almost immediately, and you scroll again. And again. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are running a 2-million-year-old survival program against hardware that was designed to exploit it. Neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino-Yang at the University of Southern California has studied what happens to the brain during rest states, including boredom, using functional MRI. Her research found that when the brain is not occupied with external tasks, it activates what is called the default mode network. This is the same network involved in imagination, memory consolidation, moral reasoning, and future planning. It is not your brain idling. It is your brain doing its deepest maintenance work. And boredom, she found, is one of the pressure valves that forces the brain into this mode. In other words, when you are bored and you resist the urge to immediately fill the gap, something important begins to happen. Your brain starts connecting things. Memories surface that had no surface before. An idea you had last week links to something you read 3 years ago. A problem you have been stuck on rearranges itself. You stare at the ceiling and suddenly you know what you need to do. This is not magic. This is boredom, completing its intended function. There is a well-documented pattern among highly creative people across history. Darwin was famous for his daily walks, long stretches of deliberate, undistracted movement, where he did not try to think and yet did his best thinking. Einstein reportedly spent long hours staring at nothing in particular at his desk before breakthroughs arrived. Marie Curie took long solitary walks along the Seine. These were not breaks from the work. They were the conditions under which the work became possible. Modern research has started to catch up with what these people instinctively knew. A 2014 study by Sandy Mann and Rebecca Cadman found that people who were made to perform a boring task before a creative challenge significantly outperformed people who went straight into the creative challenge. The boredom primed the imaginative circuits. The signal, allowed to build without interruption, forced the brain into a wider, more associative search mode. The people who were bored first did not just think harder, they thought differently. You have probably felt this without naming it. The idea that arrives in the shower, the solution that surfaces during a long drive, the memory that floats up during a moment of quiet you did not ask for. Your brain was not resting in those moments. It was finally being allowed to do what boredom had been demanding it do all along. Here is what makes this harder now. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. There were long stretches of the day when there was nothing to do but wait, for prey to appear, for weather to break, for fire to catch. The signal built, the brain engaged, the default mode network ran, and the cycle completed. Today, you can prevent boredom from ever arriving at all. Infinite content on demand, any hour, any place. The signal fires and you kill it before it builds. You never feel the full ache, and so the brain never gets the pressure it needs to turn inward. The consequences of this are only beginning to be studied. Early research suggests links between chronic avoidance of boredom and reduced creative output, shorter attention spans, lower tolerance for uncertainty, and increased anxiety. When you never sit with the discomfort long enough to let it transform, the brain loses practice doing the transformation. The muscle weakens. Researcher Andreas Elpidariou at the University of Louisville argues that boredom is, in his words, a regulatory state. It exists to regulate your relationship to meaning and engagement. It tells you when your current situation is not providing what you need, and it motivates you to seek something that does. Remove that signal permanently, and you lose your compass. You lose the internal monitor that tells you when your life has drifted off course. Think about the last time you were genuinely bored. Not mildly understimulated, not waiting for something, truly deeply bored, with nothing in reach to fix it. What happened? Something always happens. You thought of someone you hadn't thought about in years. You remembered a dream you had as a child. You decided something needed to change. You wrote something down. You started planning. You felt, briefly and uncomfortably, like yourself. That is the feeling your ancestors relied on to stay alive. That restlessness is not a flaw in your design. It is the oldest navigation system your species has. And every time you feel it and resist the urge to immediately kill it, every time you sit with it for just a little longer, you are letting it do what it was always meant to do. You are sitting still. Nothing is happening. And your brain, ancient and searching, is beginning to work. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean the world if you gave it a like, shared it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button for more content just like this. We've got so much more interesting stuff on the way, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.